Hello everyone, and welcome to Little Leaps for our new webinar for this month of November. As we all know, Little Leaps is a community committed to supporting parents, educators, and caregivers in nurturing the whole child. Today, we have the honor of hosting Margarita Diaz, an inspiring figure in the world of Montessori and multilingual education. Margarita is visionary Montessori leader, inspirational speaker, and AMS Board Member, widely respected for her transformative work in language acquisition and peace education. With over 2 decades of experience, Margarita has dedicated her career to empowering children through linguistic and cultural diversity. She served as the founding Spanish elementary teacher at a public charter school in Washington, D.C., where she built a complete dual language Montessori framework from the ground up. This pioneering model continues to set an example for schools around the world that aspire to create equitable multilingual learning environments. That is so great, Margarita. Margarita's work goes far beyond curriculum design as well. She is deeply committed to fostering global citizenship, social harmony, and inclusive education. Her multilingual and peace education initiatives have touched families and educators internationally, helping them create environments where children feel rooted in their identity while remaining open to the world. Her passion, clarity, and practical insights make her an exceptional guide for everyone navigating the beautiful and complex journey of raising bilingual or multilingual children. So please join me to welcome Margarita Diaz as she leads us through today's topic, Navigating Multilingualism, Practical Insights for Parents. But Margarita, before you share your presentation, I would love to begin by asking what inspired you to become a Montessorian and how did your journey in this meaningful work begin?
Thank you, Madhuri, for the beautiful introduction. My journey started as a mother. I have several works before, but the most joyful work is being a mother. I have two girls, now 21 and 18 years old, little adults now. But I decided to become a Montessori teacher because I was lucky enough to find a director of dual language Montessori school in Washington, D.C. It was an immersion program in Spanish. And so I didn't know much about Montessori education. At that time, I didn't know much about bilingual education. But when I observed the classroom, it was a children's house, the 3 to 6 years old. Little kids, like this experience that we have when we are in a Montessori classroom, bringing little trays, doing work on the floor, on the table. And they were already at 3 and 4 years old talking little words and small sentences in Spanish. And I was like, I want my girl, at the time Gisela was only 2 years old, I was like, I want my daughter to be in this classroom and I want to be one of those teachers. And so this is how my journey started 20 years ago. I did my certification for elementary 1 and 2 because the principal said, we need our first grade Spanish teacher in our school. So you need to have the training for elementary. And I was like, say no more. I can do anything that you ask me. And that changed my life, changed the way I raised my two girls, changed the way I communicate with other people, changed the way when I travel, how I see the world differently. And I'm just thankful for the opportunity that I had as a child, as a young adult, and now as a mother. And this is the session that I prepare for you. It's all about my journey as a multilingual mother and as a multilingual educator. So I hope that I have many tips and activities for parents to try at home. And remember always one thing, have fun and enjoy it. Because if you are loving in what you are doing with your family, the rest of the family will be also joining you, but things are not working well. It's okay. Observe and try other things. So I have plenty of things for you to share, and I hope that this is a good session for everybody.
Oh, I'm looking forward to. Please start. I know you have a presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, can you see it? Yeah. Okay. So uh, again, my name is Margarita Diaz. I've been working for Montessori for almost 20 years. At this moment, I am working as a bilingual consultant, speaker, and I am a teacher trainer. And I also an AMS board member. So I would like to start with this quote from Dr. Montessori. Language, therefore, is developed by the child herself. She develops it naturally, of course, but that means that she has inherited the power to do so. Yet it is the child who develops it in herself, taking it from the environment. Children absorb unconsciously, of course, language in a grammatical way. While they remain apparently inert for a long time, all of a sudden, within about 2 years and 3 months, they reveal a phenomenon, the explosion of a language already wholly formed. So, for the people that are not know much about Montessori, she was first a doctor, a scientist before she became an educator. So she got an understanding of how we acquire language. And she talks about these stages of unconscious mind from 0 to 3 years old, that everything that a baby child is absorbing from the environment. It's absorbing from the adults that are in her community. So it is, she emphasized, and this is more than 100 years ago, that we need to speak with these little babies, even in pregnancy. We need to start with complete sentences, reading aloud, singing to them. And this is how unconsciously they acquire the language, the grammar of the language. And if you are a bilingual or a multilingual family with different cultural backgrounds, there are several models that you can do. One parent, one language, which means I am from Ecuador. I will speak only in Spanish to our children. My husband is from Boston, from the United States. He will only speak English. So this is one model. Um, and it really works. There is a myth that children grew up in a bilingual family. Their language is not developed like the monolingual families. That's the oral myths. They absorbing, and then, like Dr. Montessori said, suddenly there is an explosion, and they will start with words, and then they start with complete sentences. And one thing that I would like to emphasize is that it might seem that bilingual or multilingual children have less vocabulary, but that's not the case, because a child that is bilingual, as an example, in English, Spanish, she will know agua and water. So this is two words for one object, and then the monolinguals only have one word for that. So just to remind us the importance of giving a gift of multiple languages. So this is me when I was 4 years old. And as an educator, I always start with my own time out line the first week when the school starts. And it's a gentle reminder that yes, Miss Margarita once was a child. I was 4 years old, and they like to hear those stories. So my bilingual journey started in Ecuador. My father, when he was an adult, his dream was to study at La Sorbonne in Paris. So he started um, learning French in Alliance Française in Quito, and he studied very hard as an adult. And he was able to study 2 years public administration in La Sorbonne in Paris. So he had this great experience. And when my brother and I were aged to go to school, at that time was 4 years old, he looked this private school that was an immersion program in French. It was 90-10. What does it mean? 90% of the curriculum was taught in French with French native teachers, and 10% was taught in Spanish with the Ecuadorian teachers. So how it translates? Math, science, literature, I mean, all this, even PE, music, it was in French. And I remember when I was at that age, at 4 years old, first going into very different environment. I couldn't understand when people were talking to me, and it was very stressful, I have to admit. But they have puppets to talk to us. They have always objects and games. And so by the way that were talking to me, engaging in a very fun and friendly way, I started like, and then this is every day, Monday to Friday, every day was an immersion in French. So later, this is how you acquire, and always the first thing to do is orally, is this oral language, like Dr. Montessori said. We don't say to a baby or to a 2 years old, today we're going to study grammar. So this is grammar in English. No, we just speak to them, we talk to them daily, and this is how we acquire. So this immersion program started like that orally, and then it was the biliteracy. We started to write and read in both languages, in French and in Spanish. So this journey took me all the way to 18 years old. So 14 years in this 90-10 model in French. When I graduated, I went to college in Quito and I decided to study marketing. And for the first time, I have all of the subjects in Spanish. And I had no problem. I just transferred. There were some new words, but I didn't have any problem to now do 100% in Spanish. So when I was in college, I decided to study English just because I like languages and I thought the importance of English. And later on, I decided to start a master's degree in the United States at University of Massachusetts. So I had to pass the GMAT, which is a language acquisition test, excuse me, the GMAT, which is the admission for the university, and the TOEFL, which is the language acquisition test. And I never studied so much hard in my life, but I succeeded, and I came to the States to study business. And it was the first time that I did all those subjects now in English. Did I have a problem? No, I just, once I learned the basic in one language, you transfer that to other languages. And I don't think I'm special. I don't think I am, I have a superpower. It's just I was lucky that I was in these beautiful environments that allow me to be the person that who I am today. So, families, what you can do if you are a bilingual, multicultural family at home. So, this is one way. Each parent should speak their native language at home, engage in activities with their children at home, and organize play dates when possible. So, find your community. In my example, I found, Hispanic families that wanted to have play dates with us. And also, do never underestimate the power of teenagers. Find those teenagers that they can come to your house and talk to the language that you want your children to practice. So this is Maribel, my second daughter, when she was 1.5, 2 years old, and she is doing the dishes. This is a practical life activity in Montessori. Um, Dr. Montessori observed those children, and she observed that they really want to mimic not only how we speak, but everything that we do. So if you are cooking, they want to cook. If you're washing, they want to wash. If you are sweeping the floor, they want to sweep the floors. So the goal is at home to do these activities with them. And you can see her happiness in her face. And I am there. I am there with my other daughter, Gisela, at that time, 5 years old, just in case, she's not accidents or we're there. And while she's doing the dishes, I am saying all the objects that she's washing in Spanish. So I am saying agua, plato, vaso, and then helping her to dry and put those things away. So the importance of reading time. I cannot emphasize the importance of reading time. Hopefully every day at home, the best time could be bedtime. Is the time that hopefully you will have time. So on the left is Gisela, my first daughter, when she was 2 years old, and we had books everywhere in our house. So this is our living room, and at the time she is just eating a book, but she knows the books are important. In the second picture is Gisela when she was 3 years old, and Maribel is 2 months. So remember what I told when we decided to have a family, we did one parent, one language. But what happened when we did that with Gisela? I was home with her for 2 years. I stopped working. And so in my mind, she didn't speak English. And but when she went to a daycare at 2 years old, we couldn't find a bilingual daycare. It was an English only. Her English in 2 months was at the level of the Spanish that was working with her for 2 years. So what happens is that in my mind, she only speaks because she was with me for 2 years. But when we go outside, when we are in the supermarket, it's English. When we go for a park, it's English. We are in public transportation, it's English. We are with friends, it's English. With the dad, is English. So English is the predominant language. So she was absorbing, and then suddenly, when she was ready, she was perfectly bilingual in English and Spanish. So when Maribel, my second daughter, was born, we decided, I said to my husband, we need to preserve and emphasize more the Spanish. So now our language at home are going to be 100% in Spanish. So we said to Gisela, you need to speak to Maribel in Spanish because she does not understand English. And so here is Gisela reading to Maribel in Spanish, and that book is in English, and she's not reading, she's only 3 years old. But she started the Montessori program in my school, the immersion program, and I'm sure that she saw the guide, the Montessori guide, reading with an older children. And this is how we read in a bilingual or multilingual environment with your fingers to show them how the sounds, how the blending of the words. So this is actually a technique to teach orally and reading in different languages. So she's mimicking that and reading in Spanish to Maribel. And then in the other picture is my husband. He always has been reading to them even when they were teenagers. And that book that he's reading, I don't know if you can see, but said is the book with no pictures. And it's a fun book that actually you can make up the story. So they story, so you can make that up, and so we can you can do that in different languages. So foster the love of learning. Anytime is a good time to practice your native language with your kids. So bath time, when you're driving, when you are going to school in a bicycle or you are walking, anytime is a good time to practice your native language. Share stories when you were a kid, how and where you grew up. They love to hear that. And talk about the life of their grandparents. It's very important to know their heritage. So what you can do at home, very important to play music, dance, sing. You don't have to be a singer, but please sing to your children. Read aloud every day. Storytelling is very important. Cook together. And so, for example, when you want to practice the name of the fruits, have the fruits available. They can smell, they can touch, they see it, and then you can say, in my example, manzana, manzana, and then you cut the manzana and then you eat the manzana. So, every day you can have um, a new vocabulary, and then you can practice like that and make it fun, enjoyable. play together, games. Puzzles are very important because most of the puzzle they don't have words, so you can use the language that you want to practice at home. And that's what we do in Montessori classroom. We have puzzles for the continents, we have puzzles for biology, for zoology, where students learn the parts of the flower, the parts of the tree, the parts of the animals, and it's very sensorial, and this is how they acquire different languages. So embrace your mother language, communicate with relatives, foster a connection with grandparents, express yourself in different languages in different situations. So here in this picture are my parents. They live in Ecuador. All my family live in Ecuador. So we were lucky enough that during summertime we traveled and the girls were immersed, and so they spoke Spanish. To me, the goal as a family was I wanted them to be able to communicate with the grandparents, with the cousins, with all my family in Spanish. And so that was our big um, goal as a bilingual, bicultural family. So multilingual families reinforce the target language. In our case, it's Spanish. Children will learn the predominant language from the environment and later at school. So don't worry. Remember how Gisela, as soon as she was immersed in the English environment, she, a level and even surpass a little bit the Spanish language. That was happening in the schools. So my advice for you parents is talk to the school if it's a bilingual school, if it's a multilingual school, what are the system in place? How are they are going to embrace your own language at school if it's different from the predominant language? And know the teachers and ask them what are the activities that you can do. Like if you don't know the language, that the predominant language, there are audiobooks. There are, some TV shows that you can actually put the language and that you want for you and your children to practice. And there are ways and communicate with the school. So what is the goal of multilingual education? To create a self-directed learning environment in which children build the foundation of knowledge essential for a lifetime of learning, with the goal of learning in two or more languages. What are the tenets of the Montessori education? That all children want to learn, that they have absorbing minds. That is a term that Dr. Montessori referred for all children from 0 to 6 years old. So they absorb everything from the environment. So this is why it's very important. How do we talk to them? How do we act? We can be, frustrated. How can we deal with that frustration? They observing that all the time. And also how we are acquiring as adults a second or the third language, how we are modeling that to our children. Um, Dr. Montessori said that all children go through sensitive periods, and the language is from birth to 6 is the best age to start bilingual or multilingual languages. Doesn't mean that later on you cannot learn, yes, but it will take a little bit more effort than if you were a 0 to 6. That all children learn through play and work. They want to be independent. The 0 to 6, they want to be physically independent. They beg you, let me do it myself. And when they are in the 6 to 12, they are moral independent. They want to think by themselves. And at any age, we all want to be part of the community. So stimulates and contributes to the development of the child's intelligence. That's the benefits of the multilingual education. Fosters independence and respectful social interactions, develops critical thinking, increases positive decision making, and the ability to express oneself creatively. So remember, whatever we do at a school or at home, make it things that are real to them. They can connect to them. So if you want to enrich the vocabulary with the clothing. So you are going to maybe label where you have the shoes. You are going to label where the bed is in the language that you want to. If they don't know how to read, you can, match a little card image of the bed by the bed, So these are like us just to increase oral C. And, if happens that your child loves birds, so why don't you have different kinds of birds and you can say those words in the language that you want them to practice more, just as examples. So what are another benefits of multilingual education? Develops multicultural skills and the power to connect with more people, increases multicultural empathy, reaches higher levels of concentration, increases self-esteem and ability to solve problems. This is one of my former students. She's now already graduated from college, but at the time she's in fourth grade. And in our school, it was an immersion program in Spanish, with the model was 70% Spanish and 30% English. So while translate, there are certain subjects that I only taught in Spanish, like science, geometry, and fractions were only taught in Spanish. And yes, as a public Montessori school, they went to testing, and the testing was in English only, and they score higher than the regular and traditional monolingual schools in the district. So she decided, one of my favorite materials is called constructive triangles, and they are different boxes with triangles. And Dr. Montessori said that the triangle, and if I said triángulo, so you see the triangle, you don't need to know, I don't need to translate. Um, and so this is how we learn in with the sensorial materials. So you see it, you touch it, you pronounce it. And so Dr. Montessori said that the triangle, is the mother of all shapes. So with this triangle, we can make all the polygons, all the quadrilaterals that we know. So she decided to take all these boxes of the so-called constructive triangles in Montessori, and she did that in regular polygon, so all sides are different. And she said, I want to calculate the area of that irregular polygon. So I was like, okay, so how are you going to do that? She said, simple. I'm going to find the area of each triangle and I'm going to add all, and that will be the total area of the irregular polygon. I was like, fantastic. So it took her, a couple of weeks. But what happened at home is that the mom said to me, I don't know what she does at school, but every week, every day, she wants to wake up earlier and she pushes me to come earlier to school because she said that she's working on a project. And so when she finished with that project, I invited the mom and she was like, wow. And that work was 100% in Espanol, and they were a monolingual family in English. So I always like to have that example. How if in a rich environment, how much our children can do. So activities that you can do in classrooms or at home, oral conversations, as I said, daily. In Montessori, we call that grace and courtesy. How do we greet people? How do you say thank you, please, I'm sorry? How you go around the material, how you open a door, etc. And practice that also at home. Have discussions, music and singing every day, every day. I'm not a singer, but buenos días, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? So every day, try to sing, and then this is how oral C start in uh, small children and also in elementary. I still sing in elementary, but this is, I think it's important, especially in transitions at home. Transitions are always hard. Move from one activity to another. What do you make it with some music and ask them to sing and to be part of also the transition, so it's less stressful. Reading aloud, dramatization. It's always a good time to be dramatic. And so when they are mad, so you can say, yes, I'm mad too. And then how can you solve the problem? And are very important activities like when we are in a multilingual environment, it's very important to teach them the feelings in the languages that you want them to express themselves. So I made this cube, and I have, the happy face, I have the sad face, I have the angry face. And so this could be also a game, you throw the cube and it's in a happy. And so how is your happy face? And so my happy face is smiling. You can see my teeth, my eyes are up. When I'm sad, my everything is so down. So these are, it's very it's a skill. It's teaching empathy. They can express themselves how they are feeling. And remember, there are no bad feelings. If I'm angry, it's not a bad feeling. I am angry because I am here and my mom left, and I feel so angry about that. So we need to talk to them and say, I understand you're angry. So what can we do? We can breathe in and out. We can go to a peace corner where we have some sensorial activities for you to, or if you want, you can do the reading corner and read something, or if you want to draw. So model what are the things that you can do, and model that also as a parent, as an educator. When I'm angry, this is the things that I do. I go outside and I drink water, and then when I feel better, I come back either to the home or school. Um, and it's okay. I'm not a bad person. Sometimes I get mad, and it's okay. But how are we dealing with those emotions? And especially in different languages, it's important for them to express. Um, so what are some techniques in multilingual Montessori education? The knowledge learned through one language helps acquire knowledge in the other languages. So for example, in the photo here is, if you don't know Montessori, but this is the pink tower. There are 10 cubes, different size from the smallest to biggest. And this is a sensorial material that start in 3 to 6 years old. And, start with the order of the cubes, the little children feel the weight, the size, and then we say bigger, smaller. But then I can present the same material, this pink tower, now in Espanol, and I can say the numbers in Espanol. Now it's uno, dos, tres, and you can do that in French, in Arabic, in different language. So it's this universal materials, but you can say the same, you know, in Chinese, in Arabic. So that's what I'm saying. The Montessori materials help us develop multilingual acquisition. So another strategy that we applied in our school that I was working, students receive instruction in cursive letters for the Spanish language and letters in print for the English handwriting. So why? Because we wanted to give them a concrete difference, especially when schools that is one teacher teaching two languages. So to help them, we say, excuse me, the cursive. So this sound is ah. In Spanish or Italian, they are phonetic. So if you know the sounds of the vowels and the consonants, you are ready to read and write. Excuse me, in Italian or Spanish. Sorry. So that was a technique that really worked because in Montessori, we try to be sensorial, to have concrete materials. So when the children were working in cursive, they know that those sounds are in the Spanish. But when we're doing the print, there were the sounds in English. So another strategy is in our school, the primary students receive language, practical life, sensorial, geometry, fractions, science, and art in a prepared environment in Spanish. So remember, our model was 70-30. So this is how we kind of separate the languages. Um, why do we decided to do sensorial, geometry, fraction, science in Spanish? Because they are all cognate. For the people that don't know what are cognates, are words that sound and spell similar in languages, especially uh, the languages that have the Latin roots, the Latin roots in Latin. So, for example, if I say círculo, that's a cognate because in English is circle. So even if you don't know the this noun in Spanish, you can say, oh, circle, círculo. In French, is cercle. So these are cognates that are words that are similar in certain languages. So remember, in my case, I learned subjects only in French that then later I transfer to Spanish, and then I transferred them to English with no problem. So we try to do that also at early age in our Montessori environments. So this is Maribel when she was in first grade. She started in Spanish. We have the feminine and the masculine articles and nouns. So Dr. Montessori, she teaches grammar. She gave us these beautiful materials. So this is universal. So this symbol of the black triangle is for the noun in any language. So if you know this in Chinese, in German, is always the same symbol. This is the symbol for the adjective. This is the symbol for the verb. So even though these symbols are universal, however, each language has their own syntax. So every language has different orders for the words. So this is another example. In English, this is the noun family. So we say, for example, the white house. But in Spanish, the noun family looks like this, is la casa blanca. So we don't say in English, this is the syntax in English. This is the syntax. No, by practicing, by working, by repetition, by mastery, they come to us and say, Miss Margarita, the word family in Spanish is this order. So these are their own discoveries. Like they all discovered the formulas in mathematics. We don't teach them to memorize anything. They discover that the cube is actually a cube because they are watching the cube. So this is how we teach algebra. But here, so just to show you, she has the en español, we teach always the article as soon as you introduce the noun, because this is the feminine and the masculine, so they need to know. If you are not native in that language, you need to say these two words together. La casa, el caballo. Because in English, there is no feminine or masculine. It's always the house, the horse. So it is important to emphasize that in according to the language. So another successful strategy is students will learn to write and read in one language first. So in our case, we decided to do it in Spanish because it is a phonetic language and because all the vowels, the sound of the vowels in English are the same sound of the vowels. The short vowels in English are the same sounds of the sounds in Espanol. So this is A, E, I, O, U. And then some of the consonants Remember, we teach the sounds, not the names. So this is also with transfer. K, k. It's the same in French, in Spanish, in English. Mm, mm. So there are certain consonant sounds that also we can transfer to different languages. And so students are immersed in the target language in a Montessori environment with native speakers guide. Ideally, that would be ideal. And then learn the importance of cognates. So now we know what cognates mean. So what are some bilingual strategies at the elementary level? So the elementary level, we teach language, science, geometry, fractions, statistics, and measurement with certified Spanish speaking guides. In language, algebra, history, geography, cosmology, and culture from certified English speaking guides. So we were very lucky to have actually two guides per classroom, one in English and one in Spanish. This is one model. There are other schools that have one teacher that teaches the two languages. All of the models, whatever the school decide and they are well implemented, they will work. What are some activities that you can do at home or also at school? Pen pals with schools from other countries. Visit restaurants, go to those restaurants. Most of the servers, they speak the language that you want to practice. Visit embassies, museums, attend shows, theater, plays. Celebrate cultures around the world. Invite parents and staff from those countries. So, um, in the school that I work, we had a great community of Hindus. So for Diwali, we invited those parents to come with books, with the food, because I don't celebrate that, but I love to know how other people celebrate. And that's the multicultural empathy. Our students and our family, or all our kids, they understand that everybody is different. Everybody dress different. Everybody eats different. Everybody hear different music. However, we all need love. We all need connection. We all need to be respected. So this is the beauty of being in bilingual and multicultural environments. And have international days of celebrations all year long. So what are the special projects that you can do in the target language at a school? Have science fairs. So we have science fairs only in Spanish. Have oral presentations, ideally in both languages. And have your own timeline of life. So I invite, like I did at the beginning, my own time of life with photos while, I was child, adolescent, and adult. I ask my students to do the same, and they come and they do those oral presentations. Leader personification. I love to do these personifications. I always used to be Dr. Montessori to celebrate her birthday in mid-August. At this time, I was Frida Kahlo, so I come with books and I tell the story, and the children really engage. And some of them, they know that I am there, but somehow they talk to me as Frida Kahlo and Miss Frida. So what happened, and why do you do that? And it's great. And those are the great conversations, the great connections that you have. Peace bag is an activity that I like to do at any age. So I asked them to bring two or three objects that brings peace. So I modeled and I said, this, little shelf brings me peace because reminds me when I was a child, when I went to the beach with my family. And now when I go to the beach with my own kids. Um, this is a little rock that Gisela picked up when we were going to a playground and she painted. And this is little pottery that Maribel did when she was 8 years old. So this brings to me peace. And so I invite them and they bring, these special things. And it's so great to know them in a different way and how they have inherited traditions in their family, what are specials for them. So it's always a bonding time. So it's always a good time to learn a new language. You can always learn one or more languages. Age is not an impediment. So here is my mother-in-law that she sadly passed away. But when we met with my husband, her goal, she said to me, I want to learn Spanish because I want to have a conversation with your parents. And with your family when we traveled to Ecuador. So she started taking classes, she had a tutor, and then she went an immersion in Oaxaca, Mexico for 2 months. And she did it. And so she is always an inspiration to us, and she was known as Abuela Laura. Um, and then the beauty of a multilingual or bilingual environment is everybody's a language learner. So nobody's an English learner or a Spanish learner. Everybody's learning a language, and we encourage teachers, parents, and staff to learn also the target language. So everybody should be a role model. Another quote from Dr. Montessori: what truly creates a guide is a love for the child, because it is love that transforms the social duty of an educator into the highest awareness of a mission. So, love, connection, always very, very important in whatever you do. So, here, these are some resources that I can share. If you can email me, I can share all those resources. So, this is an article that I wrote for AMS. There are also some audiobooks that are in Spanish, but I'm sure that that have also in different languages. This is more than 100 books that you can buy online in Spanish, but they also have in other languages. And they're more further resources of bilingual and dual language education. And I would like to share the Reading A to Z kits. So these are books that you can print at home or at the schools, and they have different levels from A to Z, A being the easiest, Z the highest level, and it's from kindergarten through sixth grade, and they come in all languages, and they come for cultural subjects, for fiction, nonfiction. So I use that a lot in my classroom with my students. So here is my website, my email. So email me if you have further questions or comments. And I just want to say my niece Emily did my website, so I appreciate that. So we open for questions or comments if you have it.
Thank you so much for this lovely presentation, Margarita. And what an inspiration, your mother-in-law. I mean,
Yeah.
learning a new language at that age just to communicate with your family. Incredible. That's incredible. Great. While I was just listening to you and going through the slides, I was revisiting and reminiscing my own experiences and what you spoke about, learning one language that helps children understand how to fix the syntax for a new language. It's very very true, because when my daughter was very young, I always spoke in my mother tongue, which is one of the Indian language, Hindi. And everybody around me would say, why don't you speak with her in English? She will anyway go to school, and then she will find it very difficult to adapt because she won't know English, and you can speak so well, so why don't you speak in English with her? And I would tell them that she should know her mother tongue first. And I was not Montessori trained then. But my objective was, because my parents, my in laws, they communicated with her in our mother tongue. And if she was not having that connection with the language, it was very difficult for them to bond together. So, my idea of introducing the mother tongue was for her to have that bond with the family. But I could see the change. As you said, your daughter, when she went to school, within 2 months, she learned, because she was hearing the language everywhere outside of home. So it was easy for her to pick up. And yeah, that's it. My daughter is 13 now, and she just refuses to speak in any other language but English. So, so children pick up and children acquire the language. It's just that if one foundation is strong, it is easy for them to, take over from there. So I totally
Yeah.
agree. And the other thing that you shared was the sounds. So I don't know. This is an Indian. So this is k, right?
Mm.
and in Hindi, this is K. So I'm seeing that many of the schools are now doing this for them, for children, to make that connection with the phonetics, and
Mhm.
then produce the sound as per, the letters. So that was a very good takeaway. I just recently came across that and I was like, wow, this is very interesting, because generally what we do, we isolate the languages totally.
Mhm.
And then the same sound for children, when they are listening from a different language perspective, it becomes completely different. And this is why learning becomes slow, I feel. But
Mhm.
when you connect, it becomes easier for them to learn. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was very interesting to share that, because I just came across this technique. So it was,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm always learning, you know. This is awesome. And yeah, this is the sound for us too. This is the k in English, in French, and in Spanish is the same sound. Yeah, interesting.
yeah. I just wanted to ask you, why just before starting the session, also we were having this discussion, and you also mentioned that parents, when they are putting their children in a school, they need to also inquire if the school encourages different languages, or they are open, because especially in the settling period, children find it very difficult if somebody is speaking in a foreign language than what they have heard at home, right? So but I have seen many schools completely rejecting this idea and saying that no, this is an English medium school and we are not going to use any other language but English. And if the child enters the space, we may give them slow transition, but we are not going to connect with the child in their mother tongue or any language that they are comfortable in. Now, this results in sometimes taking a longer time for settling. Um, do you suggest this idea being right, or what is the alternative, way to address this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we need to be respectful of the decision of the school. And to me as a parent, that would not be my first choice because I believe in multilingualism. And um, when you set this message that we only speak English, we are saying that whatever your language is not important, is less important than English, and English is more important. And so that can have like a rebellious unconsciously to the children, and they can, completely shut down. And you are hurting because if you greet to that child in Hindu, as an example, if you sing to everybody in Hindu, that child is going to m- make it feel really part of the community and say, wow, people care about me. And so when they start talking in English, they said, okay, so this is how it works. And now I need to learn this other language. And hopefully they're making fun. They are, having puppetry, they are putting music, they're having movement, they are having games. Hopefully they're making fun, especially when for little children. So this is my message. You know, you can do much if the school already have that decision, but you can say, I don't agree with that. I think, you should embrace diversity. It's about equity, it's about connection. And the best way that you feel connected is when people greet to you. And even if you don't speak Spanish, if you say to me, Buenos dias, that makes my day. It makes me, I want to talk to you. And so those little things make a big difference. And me as an adult, I feel that way. Can you imagine to a 2 to 3 year old how it make that person feel?
Yeah, and I also feel that if we are outrightly rejecting the child's language, the mother tongue, and eventually the child continues in the school, somehow I think the child is also conditioned to value that one language that has been made important, and they slowly start. I also feel this is why nowadays English has become a global language, because everybody is making it so important that people are losing on, keeping that touch base with their own mother tongue.
Yeah.
So, and I feel schools are one of the biggest contributors in making that perception. So, how are we going to respect our roots if we are not respecting the language? If the schools are not, encouraging to respect our language? Yes, English is important because it's a global language and everybody needs to know that. But having said this, as you said, where is the self esteem? Where is the feeling of I'm important when you are not trying to bond with me also in
Yeah.
from the starting, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel having that equity, that's very important. So we have Christine. She is asking, what are some effective techniques that can be used for distance learning, that is online, to help the adolescent in learning a new language?
So for to answer that question, I would like to know a little bit more if that adolescent has already some background in the language that you want to reinforce, because it's from zero. Um, Adolescents are at the different development period, and so the first thing will be to know more about that adolescent. What are the things that he or she likes? That she likes music, that she likes movies, and then start to give in the vocabulary for the things that interested that person beginner, but some knowledge is there. It has to be my advice, a lot of like I've been showing you, concrete things like I don't know, like name of artists, and try to refer them like the I don't know, like emotions in that language that they want to learn. Um, and especially when it's online, you have to be very interactive with objects, make it fun, um, throwing up some jokes, very important at that age. So, um, sorry if not answering correctly, but I I don't teach adolescents and I don't teach online adolescents. But my advice will be have the teacher know more about that person background, and try to follow the skills and the hobbies that that person likes.
Yes, yeah. Basically, you are suggesting to bond with the child first, and then, yeah, start from the basic so that they have concrete. I mean, I always tell in 0 to 3, it's the concrete to abstract. And I think anything that you're learning as a beginner, the learning should be from concrete to abstract. So
Right.
yeah, so having that understanding of things that they already know in that new language, and then moving to make rephrasing or phrasing sentences, that comes later because that's very abstract. They need to know the syntax for that language, but before
Yeah.
that, they
Oral
the
C,
words.
oral C is very important. We need to talk to them before going to grammar and conjugation of verbs and etc. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before that, also they need the names of the objects,
Yes. Yes.
the emotions. Yeah, they need to know the labels, and then only they can use the order. She also asks, how do you feel about languages being a requirement in school? For example, English in French schools.
Um, I in favor. The more languages that children are exposed at the younger age, the better. So if the school is bilingual English, French, and you have your heritage language at home, so your children will be trilingual, even better. And the schools that are already committed to bilingualism or multilingualism, they already have a system in place. So ask them, how are you going to embrace our language while also teaching my child English and French? And those are very good questions, and they should answer. And then my advice, connect with the teachers and ask them, What are the things that I can do at home? So some schools I know they have themes of the month. So they have vocabulary of fruits and vegetables and share that information. And you also practice at home. So again, have these fruits and vegetables ready and practice saying 3 times and then prepare meals with these fruits and vegetables. If you have older children, you can start writing some basic sentences. Um, you can also find TV shows like Sesame Street. They have in different languages. So put those on when you have little children at home. And I'll be honest with you, when I came to the United States and when Gisela was little, I put some Sesame Street and I was learning some vocabulary in English that I never knew before, like the faucet. I never used that, when I was working or but the faucet, I was like, oh, and then it's the spelling and it's the song about the faucet. And it was like, oh, and so I was like, Giselle and I were learning. And so, just as a basic example, you need to connect with the school, you need to know those teachers, and you need to let them know that you are a partner with them. And that's the best way to support our children, both at home and at school.
Thank you. Margarita, I was just asking you this question that one of the parents had asked during registration, how one parent can introduce two languages to a child.
Yeah, I think if, for example, I am trilingual in French, Spanish, and English. I can easily speak English and Spanish to my children. Um, if that would be my decision, I will make it kind of clear to them. For example, saying, tonight we're going to read Sally Ride, and we're going to read it in English. And so I would read the book in English. We will review the vocabulary. We will ask questions in English. And then another night I will say, tonight we are going to read in Espanol about Sacagawea. And so we read in Spanish and have those questions. We review the vocabulary. So try to be clear which language are you going to talk, so it's also very clear for them, because remember, our bilingual or multilingual children, they are very good listeners because they need to listen which language are they being talking to. They need to process, and then they need to give feedback in that language. So it is a lot of muscles and connections in the brain, but our kids have this power of better concentration just to the fact that they need to tune with which language they have been talking to than regular monolingual. So they are already in advance in that. And so that would be one of the advice. And also, have some games and, traditional games, hopefully from the cultural language that you are trying to teach. And then when you are outside with friends, also try to make them interact and, make it as fun as possible as you can.
Yeah. So, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and ask. Um, I'll just look for a few more questions which our audiences have asked. Okay. I am a Montessori teacher in a 0 to 3 environment, and many parents belonging to multilingual families ask among language development delays in their child. So I'm looking for answers as to why this happens and what advice can I offer them to help their child.
Yeah, and there are steps when children are exposed to bilingual or multilingual environments. There is actually a period silence, and that is true. And that doesn't mean that they don't understand. It doesn't mean that they are rejecting the language. It just means that they are absorbing that language. And then when they feel ready, they will express themselves. So remember my daughter Gisela, in my mind, she didn't speak English because she was with me for 2 years. I was talking to her only in Spanish. Um, and then as soon as she was exposed to a English only environment, boom, it was an explosion in English. So that made me feel like, yes, actually there is this period of silence is real. And we also see that in the school that I worked, in the little kids, there are some kids that take them 2 years to start talking in Spanish. But once they do, they start with complete sentences in Spanish, and it's every year we see this miracle. And so we need to trust the system. We need to have faith that all children will learn in a prepared environment. And it's also very important to educate the parents to let them know that yes, some children, not all of them, but some children will go to this silent period, which is normal, but it doesn't mean that they are not learning. They are just taking their time before they can express themselves.
And do you also think that these children in multilingual family have a preferable language, as in they prefer one language over the other languages, even though they are getting the exposure of all the languages equally? Sometimes the child might pick up one language and start talking in that language first, and even though the child understands other languages, refuses to use that.
Yes, and as we are all different, as all flowers are different, we all bloom at different times and we all choose different languages. From my own experience, my own daughters, I only spoke to them in Spanish and they came with waves. When they were little, they will talk to me in Spanish. When they were middle school, high school, they refused to talk Spanish. It was only English. I continued talking to them in Spanish. They talked to me back in English. And I was like, well, they are understanding because they are talking to me back in English. And now that they are outside home, now they call me and it's 100% in Spanish. And so it's kind of interesting how they kind of now understand the importance of being bilingual. And my younger daughter, Maribel, she said, Mom, I think my Spanish, I am forgetting. I'm like, no, no, you're not forgetting. We need to practice. So she now, I didn't say anything, but she now talks to me only in Espanol. And so, yeah, so, when even when they little and when they were talking to me in Spanish, among themselves, their language, the sister language, was English. There was never, even today, they talk to them in English. And so it's that's what I'm saying. You have to have faith and you have to trust the process and you have continue. Like to me, in my mind, Spanish, Spanish, Spanish. And if you talk to me in English, I don't care. I continue talking in Spanish to them and they choose and they have been like Spanish, English, and now it's back to Spanish.
So I just wanted to ask you this question because in many families, and you also said you were married to an American who speaks English, and you spoke in Spanish with your children. So at home, was the environment where your husband was speaking only in English with your children, and you were speaking in Spanish? And then when they were young, they chose to speak only in Spanish and not in English. So was that there, or was it that
Yeah,
bits of?
I mean, for us was a easy decision because my husband happens to be that he was perfectly bilingual when we met. He spent years in Latin America. He learned Spanish actually in Ecuador. And so his Spanish, I mean, he's fluent. And because of his work here in the United States, he works a lot in Latin America, so he needed to learn Portuguese because of the big Brazilian population. And so he's trilingual in Portuguese. So we kind of, for us as a family, we model that we are a trilingual family. So for us, it was a natural decision to speak only Spanish because my husband speaks Spanish. That won't be the case if my husband didn't understand Spanish. That would be not an easy decision because you don't want to have one parent left out of the conversations. And so that's what I'm saying. Every child, every family is different. And even if in one family, one adult or one child is different. So, it's not one size fits all. You have just to have your goals. Like in one session, one parent said, my goal is to pray with my children in my mother tongue. And I say, okay, so do that. And that's your goal. That's a beautiful goal. So do it. Every family is different. Others like me, they said, when I travel and visit my family, I want my children to be able to communicate with my grandparents. So that would be oral sit. But for me, it went beyond that. I wanted them not only to be bilingual, but I wanted them to be biliterate. I wanted them to read and write in both languages. So, it's everybody's different. And everybody comes from different experiences.
And
So,
what would you suggest to those families where the partners have different languages and they don't know each other's languages also too well, and they are trying to communicate in their own language with the child, but the child prefers to, pick up one language. I mean, in my family, my sister is, of course, we speak Hindi, and my brother-in-law, her husband, he speaks a different language. And the child eventually did not choose to speak either of the language. He started speaking in English. So, so, so
yeah. But my advice would be continue speaking Hindu and the other language, one parent, one language. That's what I recommend. And even if the child talks back in English, that means that they understand it, and that's great. That's a great way to understand that they are taking that language too, those languages too. So don't give up. Don't give up. Read at night in your, you know, mother tongue. So the dad one language, the mom another language. So they can take turns. Which night is mom, which the other night is dad, and just say and talk and say, we are a multilingual family, and I think it is important that you at least understand. It's okay if you don't want to talk, and talk to them. They understand. But you will see when you grow up how lucky you are to embrace different cultures, different backgrounds. And I want to talk to you about your grandparents and then talk to them. And then they really, when they make those connections and then they still feeling self-esteem and proud about their background, I think that's beautiful too.
yeah, truly, it's beautiful. So, yeah, we can take one more question. We are towards the end of our session. So, audiences, if you have any questions, please type it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
I know it's a lot of information.
I just wanted to say something. Thank you so much, Anne, for inviting me to your presentation. My aunt has always spoken to my cousins in Spanish, and when they visit us in Ecuador, they practice even more, and now they speak Spanish really well. Seeing your presentation today remind me of that same dedication you have always had, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Emily.
So, um, there is one more question that I would like to ask. It is by another parent. It's Amy Desiri Goldstein. She hasn't joined today, but her question is, um, a 4-year-old daughter speaks Mandarin with grandmother when she visits once a week. There is a bilingual Mandarin school in the area, but it is not Montessori, rather international baccalaureate. Should we consider the bilingual program or rather send her to a Montessori elementary and then a weekend or after Mandarin class?
My recommendation would be to go to the bilingual school. I know that Montessori is the best environment, but if the school already believe in the bilingual and if that's the language, the second language that you want your child to acquire and grandma is on board, I think that will be my advice. And then you can do the Montessori way at home. You can do practical life cooking, chores and games at home in Chinese, and that would be my advice.
Yeah. Uh, there is one more question. Oh, no, I think some of them are very personal questions. So if they were present, we would have asked. Yeah, there is one question. Raising my son in a cross-cultural marriage, struggling to teach him the mother tongue after consciously teaching him English, as it's the common language between us parents. Mismatch in expectations with partner at this stage. So, what to do?
Well, you need to have a family talk. And first of all, I will recommend the adults to have that conversation and see what really can be realistic for that case. And also, it's important the age of the child. If it's a little children, you can um, decide to teach one mother tongue language, if that's the case. The older there are, the more resistance because they already passed the sensitive periods. It will take a lot from you to try to implement a second or a third language at home. Um, However, if the child is, older than 8 or up, invite them to that conversation and say, why you as a family think this is important and what are the thoughts, what are the things that can be realistic for the family. And then have activities like watch movies in the language that you want to the child to start being immersed, play music from that language. So try to make it, my message is try to make it as much fun as you can, because if everybody's miserable, then this is not working. But if somehow it's fun and interactive and it's a way to connect, so then you are doing the right thing.
That's so true. Christine says, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So, with this question, the question was also that the partners are not on the same page. Um, I have very commonly noticed when I interact with families, especially when we have these parent-teacher meetings. Um, Sometimes when both the mother and the father are coming and we are having those interactions where we are trying to find the common ground, sometimes it ends up as marriage counseling. because because they both are pointing fingers at each other at the end of the conversation. Every point that I'm trying to make and trying to make them understand, um, it's just like mudslinging on each other and saying she is very careless or she is very easily giving in to the child, and then she is saying no, he is too strict and he is not listening to me, and then we the primary focus shifts from the child to helping these couple, come to a common consensus. Now, in those situations, how can we help those families when they themselves are not ready to be on same page? How can we help this young child?
Yeah, and it happens all the time, right? So the first thing is we need to educate parents. So we need to have these sessions the first week of school with all parents that we invite, and we say we are going to talk about bilingual and multilingual and how the heritage language it is important. Are all the benefits that your children are going to have for being exposed to, and these are all the benefits and are the things that you can do at home. This is what we're doing at the school. And then we have the one-on-one conferences with parents, reminding them gently, we are here to talk about your child. I understand you have differences, but we're here for your child. So let's talk about what's the things that are important for your child right now. And hopefully you can have that conversation at home.
Yeah.
So gently reminding them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe an eye opener for them also. Yes. Yeah, it's very true. So yeah, thank you so much, Margarita. It was a great session today, a lovely presentation and beautiful insights for the questions that I just asked. And thank you, Christine, for asking question and others who have asked questions during their registration. I know that some of them have missed the sessions, but of course, we'll be sharing the videos with them. So thank you all of you for joining in today, signing in for today's session. And we are going to look forward to Margarita's resources that you are going to share. Please share with me so that I can share with the community as well, Margarita. And
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you and great weekend ahead. All of
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.